Case of ultrastructure of a muscle, or especially striated muscle, we have three different type of muscles are there. Striated muscle, then smooth muscle and cardiac muscle. These are the three major types of muscle. And out of this striated muscle usually having some kind of marking, just like zebra crossing. You have there is a marking, dark band and white band will be there. So that will be the case of a striated muscle, and they are also known by the name of skeletal muscle because they are usually associated with a skeleton or a bone. So that is why it is also known by the name of skeletal muscle. Now another important feature of most of the striated muscles are that they are voluntary. Voluntary means we can, for example, our legs, hands, etc. are formed of striated muscle. That means we can deliberately control our legs or hands by our will. According to the way you are thinking, you can move your hands. But there are some other muscles which you cannot move like that. For example, stomach muscle or the muscles of a heart. You cannot control it. So if heart muscle stops working, it is stopped. We cannot ask heart muscle to please start working so that I can leave for some more time. We cannot tell like that. So only the skeletal muscle or a striated muscle we can control, and that is the meaning of the word voluntary muscle. The important components of a striated muscle include muscle fiber, myofibril, sarcomere, and different types of protein. We have to see what is the meaning of all these terms. So coming to a muscle fibers are the basic unit of a skeletal muscle, and I will show you here. See, this is a muscle. Now in the case of a muscle, this is the entire structure is known by the name muscle. Now one important thing about a muscle is that they have a sarcolemma. Sarcolemma means the plasma membrane of a muscle is known by the name a muscle cell is known by the name a sarcolemma. See here also you can see that. So this is a structure of a muscle, and each muscle will be having a larger portion which we call by the name muscle belly, and finally this one is known by the name a muscle cell. Actually this is the muscle cell, and you can see here the sarcolemma. Sarcolemma actually means the cell membrane of a muscle. Now next point about the muscle is that, so sarcoplasm actually means the cytoplasm of a muscle cell. So if you take a muscle cell or a muscle fiber, whether you are using the term muscle fiber or a muscle cell, both are actually the same thing. It has the following structures. There is a cell membrane which is known by the name sarcolemma, and there will be a cytoplasm which we call by the name sarcoplasm, and it will be containing a lot of cellular organelles like mitochondria will be there, then endoplasmic reticulum will be there, glycogen granules will be there. So these are some of the important organelles which will be present inside the cytoplasm or sarcoplasm of the muscle cell. Then there is a nucleus. Since muscle fibers are multinucleated, they contain multiple nuclei. That is, one important feature of the muscle cell is that they have more than one nucleus. So that is a peculiarity of a muscle cell. More than one nucleus will be present in each muscle cell. So that is the nature of a muscle cell. Then next point regarding the muscle cell is that there are myofibrils, and about which I will tell you slowly. So this is how an entire muscle will be normally appearing. Then myofibrils, before we come to myofibrils, let's understand what is the structure of a muscle. See, this is the muscle. Now if you take one, for example, you take one muscle here or any part of your body, the entire portion we call by the name muscle. Then each muscle is actually composed of number of cylindrical units, and these cylindrical units are known by the name fasciculus. So here you can see that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fasciculus are there. Now these are just like cylindrical tubes and they are known by the name fasciculus. Now if you take one fasciculus, Again we can see that this is one fasciculus. Inside that one fasciculus there will be number of smaller muscle fibers or muscle cell. So this is a muscle cell. Here another muscle cell. This is another muscle cell. This is so each fasciculus will be containing 10 number of muscle cells will be there, or a muscle fibers will be there. Now if you take one muscle cell or a muscle fiber, it is externally covered by sarcolemma. Internally there will be nucleus. Now each muscle cell will be having a lot of fiber-like thing or thread-like structures. This fiber or thread-like structures inside the muscle cell is known by the name myofibril. So that is how the structure of a muscle cell is there. At the lowest level it is myofibril, at the highest level it is muscle. Or you can say it in the opposite direction. Muscle starts in muscle belly. Inside that there is fasciculus. Inside fasciculus you have this different type of muscle fibers, and inside the muscle fiber you are seeing the myofibril. So that is the arrangement of this muscle cell. Now come back to the muscle again. So here we have the myofibril. So these myofibrils are actually composed of repeating units called sarcomere, which are the functional units of a muscle. That term you have to understand. What is a sarcomere? Here I will show you here. You can see that if you take a muscle fiber, you can see that inside the muscle fiber there will be myofibril will be there. Now you take one myofibril, it will be having this an arrangement like this. That is, some regions are more darker in color and some regions are more whiter in color. Here you can see these dark colored regions are known by the name dark A band or dark band, and light colored portions are known by the name I band. Now if you look closely, you can see that at the center of the eye, band, you can see a dark line. That line is known by the name Z disc. So here also there is one Z disc, here also another Z disc. Now between the region between one Z disc and another Z disc is known by the name sarcomere. See, this is one Z disc, this is another Z disc. This region is known by the name sarcomere. The importance of sarcomere is that is the unit of muscle contraction. When a muscle is contracting, it is a sarcomere that is contracting. So that is how the muscle will be working. So we'll come back to that again. So so you can see that a muscle will be consist of myofibril, and myofibril will be having a repeating units called sarcomere, and they are the functional unit of muscle contraction. The sarcomere are what give striated muscle their distinctive striped or striated appearance under a microscope. We can see light band and we can also see dark band. So I band, the I stands for isotropic. These are lighter bands and are mostly made up of one type of filament known as actin filament. Another type of band is known as A band. A stands for anisotropic. So these are darker bands containing overlapping region of actin and myosin. Here we have already seen that. See, this is how a myofibril will be appearing. This is how a muscle will be appearing. There is dark dark band as well as light bands are there. So look closely. These are the dark band, and this is the light band or I band. This is the A band. So that is how the structure of a muscle is normally appearing. We have A band and I band. Now another thing that we have discussed is Z disc or Z line. They are the boundaries of each sarcomere. The two ends of the sarcomere are known by the name Z disc, or the region between two Z disc is known by the name A sarcomere. And maybe you have studied about this in your +2 classes. Now again, sarcomere, what is a sarcomere? As I told you, it is a smallest contractile unit of a muscle extending from one Z disc to another Z disc. So within the sarcomere, there are two types of filaments are arranged. You can see thin filaments and thick filaments, mainly composed of actin and along with the regulatory protein like tropomyosin and troponin. Then thick filaments are there, that is known by the name myosin. I will show you that. So this is how the structure of a muscle will be. A muscle Ultrastructure of a muscle will be there. So we have the muscle, you take one muscle fiber, we are enlarging it, you are seeing dark region, we are seeing light region. In the middle of the light region you are seeing Z disc, and in the middle of another light region you are seeing another Z disc, and this region we call by the name sarcomere. If you take one sarcomere, which is considered as the unit of muscle contraction, this is the way you will be seeing. So there will be certain thicker band which are known by the name thick filament, and there will be this bluish colored thin band which are known as the thin filament. So this is how normally the muscle will be appearing. There are thicker filaments known by the name myosin filament, and there are thinner filaments known by the name actin filaments. So myosin filament is formed of myosin protein, actin filament is formed of actin protein. So that is a feature of a muscle. So this is how the sarcomere we have already seen. If you take one sarcomere, you are seeing thin filaments and thick filaments. Thin filaments are formed of actin, thick filaments are formed of myosin. When a muscle contracts, the thin filaments slide over the thick filament, causing a sarcomere to shorten. This is known by the name sliding filament theory. That is, here you can see that the muscle is arranged like this. So normally what is happening here, you may focus on here. So when a muscle is contracting, these thin filaments will be moving to the center. It will be like entering into the other. So that kind of sliding of thin filaments into the region of thick filaments is known as sliding, and that idea is known by the sliding filament theory. Maybe that also you might have studied in your +2 classes as well as high school classes. So that is a sliding filament theory. It's an important theory which is explaining about the contraction of a muscle, how a sarcomere is contracting, and what is really or mechanically happening during a muscle contraction. Now next is the sarcoplasmic reticulum or T-tubule. Sarcoplasm means endoplasmic reticulum. If a muscle is known as a sarcoplasm. It is a specialized form of endoplasmic reticulum in a muscle cell that store and release calcium ion which are critical for muscle. So normally it is when a calcium ion is reaching a muscle cell, they get the message to contract. So if calcium ions are not coming, muscle will not contract. So the calcium ions are actually stored by the endoplasmic reticulum, and there are transverse tubules are there which are known as a T-tubule, are invaginations of sarcolemma, that is in pushing of the sarcolemma that help transit action potential deep into the muscle fiber, triggering the release of calcium from sarcoplasmic reticulum. Actually, these are actually horizontally arranged or transversely arranged tubes. Yeah, and these tubes are known by the name T-tubules, and their main function is to help in the release of calcium ion from the sarcoplasmic reticulum. Then you can see this is the sarcomere. You can see that these are the thick filaments and these are the thin filaments. This moving of thin filaments into the thick filaments is known by the name sliding filament theory. See, these are the Z line. You can see that here. You can see that the T-tubules are the, see these kind of tubules. These are known as a T-tubule. They are arranged or transversely, and they help in the transferring of calcium ions into the sarcoplasmic reticulum or endoplasmic reticulum. So that is a function of a T-tubule. Then another point regarding the muscle. So we have seen what is a sarcoplasmic reticulum as well as a T-tubule. Now the next thing about the muscle is muscle. Then next item, next area is the muscle protein. What are the important types of muscle proteins are there? Muscle contraction is primarily driven or caused by interaction between actin and myosin. See, here you can see that there are two different types of protein. They are known as actin protein, a thin protein. Another is a thick protein known by the name myosin protein. Then each of these protein play a distinctive role in the function of a striated muscle. Now myosin, if you take a myosin, is a large motor protein that forms the thick filament in the sarcomere. Now coming to the structure of a myosin, myosin molecules consist of 2 heavy chain and 4 light chain. The heavy chain forms a long tail and a globular head. So that is the nature of the myosin. It is formed of 4 chain. 4 chains, 2 heavy chains and 4 light chains are there. Then about the function of the myosin, it is a globular, it has a, I will show you one picture of a myosin protein so that you may be able to understand. So this is normally how the structure of a myosin will be appearing. See, this is the nature of a myosin. See, this is the myosin. So this is how the myosin will be normally appearing. It has a head region, then it has a tail region. So that is the myosin filament and myosin head. So this is the head and this is the main portion. That is what they have discussed here. Myosin consists of a globular head of myosin. This is the globular head of the myosin, and this other is the tail portion of the myosin, and both will be interacting. And myosin has an ATPase activity. ATPase activity means it has a capacity of releasing ATP, meaning it can hydrolyze ATP to provide energy needed for contraction. So that is the main function of this. They will be releasing ATP and they will be giving energy for the muscle contraction. Myosin heads binds to actin, forming cross bridges, and use energy from ATP hydrolysis to pull the actin filaments, generating the movement. I will show that also. See how muscle contraction is taking place. See, if you go to the muscle, this is how, so this is what is happening. See, here you can see that, another picture. So during a muscle contraction, this is the way it is happening. See, this is the myosin, it has an head, and this is the actin. Myosin will be attaching with the actin and pulling it to the inside. So that kind of pulling nature is, see here also you can see that. This myosin head will be attaching with actin and it pulling it. So it is during this pulling mechanism that muscle is actually, here also you can see that. This is another picture. That picture also is showing the idea of how this pulling is. See, these are the head. All these heads will be attaching with the actin filament and will be pulling the actin filament towards the center. See, it is attaching the actin filament and pulling it. See, this is the actin, it will be attaching like that and pulling it. So that kind of pulling action is actually responsible for the sliding filament theory. So maybe in another class I will show you a video. Maybe if there is any video, I will show you here. Maybe here some videos are there. See, this is what is happening in a muscle contraction. See, you can see that.
Muscle contraction is an to their heads. The gliding motion is halted when ATP molecules bind to the myosin heads, thus severing the bonds between myosin and actin. The ATP molecules are now decomposed into ADP and phosphate, with the energy released by this reaction stored in the myosin heads, ready to be used in the next cycle of movement. The myosin heads resume their starting positions along the actin myofilament and can now begin a new sequence of actin binding. The presence of further calcium ions will trigger a new cycle.
So this kind of pulling action is actually responsible for the muscle contraction. Each time muscle will be pulling. See, you can see how that happens. See, when it is pulling, the actin filaments will be coming closer. So that is the mechanism of actually how the muscle is contracting, and that theory is what is known by the name sliding filament theory. Now you have another type of protein known by the name actin protein. Mainly actin forms the thin filament and is key protein in the muscle contraction. So actin is actually pulled into the middle by the myosin head. Now actin consists of a polymer globular protein, G-actin protein, which are the subunits, and which assemble into a double-stranded helix called F-actin protein. Here we have already seen that. Then function of the actin protein is that during the contraction, myosin head attached to the specific binding site of the actin. Already we have seen how this myosin head is attaching with the actin filament and is pulling it and resulting in the shortening of the sarcomere. Now that is about the function of the actin. So about two proteins we have seen. Now the third is the tropomyosin. Tropomyosin is a regulatory protein. The primary proteins are myosin and actin. They are mainly involved in muscle contraction, but there are few other proteins known by the name tropomyosin. The function of the tropomyosin is mainly, they are mainly concerned with the regulation of the muscle contraction. That is why they are known as a regulatory protein. It is a long fibrous protein that winds around. Here maybe somewhere here I have shown that actin. No, here there are no pictures of that. Earlier I think I have taken that actin, myosin. So that is the main function of that. It's a fibrous protein that winds around the tropomyosin. So see here also you can see this is the tropomyosin. Here you can see that. So this is the tropomyosin. See, these are the tropomyosin and this is the actin. Okay, this is myosin. The middle one is the actin. These long winding tubes are known by the name tropomyosin. So tropomyosin, if you take, is a long fibrous protein that winds around the actin filament, and the tropomyosin blocks myosin binding sites on actin under the resting condition, preventing cross-bridge formation and muscle So that is how the tropomyosin will be controlling, and because they will be blocking myosin and actin attachment. When calcium level increases, tropomyosin moves out of the way, exposing myosin binding sites. That is, it is the calcium, it is primarily responsible for causing muscle contraction. If there are no calcium, this actin myosin binding may not take place. When the calcium is released, actin myosin bonding will be taking place. Now we have one more protein, that is a troponin. It's a complex of three proteins: troponin I, troponin T and troponin C. They are mainly associated with the thin filament. Here you can see this is the thin filament. So there is a troponin. See, this is a tropomyosin, and this green colored one is known as a troponin. Now in the isotroponin we have three subunits. Three types are the troponin C, mainly binds to the calcium ion. When calcium binds to troponin C, it induces a conformation. Conformation means shape, a change in the nature, change in the shape of the molecule or change in the structure of the molecule. Then troponin I is it inhibits actin myosin interaction. That is the nature of second one. Troponin T is binds to tropomyosin, anchoring troponin complex to the thin filament. Now coming to the main function, you don't need to understand what are the three different types of troponin. Just remember that troponin is a complex protein formed of three types of protein. When calcium ions are binding to troponin C, the troponin complex undergoes a change that shifts tropomyosin away from actin myosin site, allowing myosin head to bind to actin. So what is actually happening is that these tropomyosin as well as tropomyosin and troponin, their function is regulation, controlling of muscle contraction. And for that, they are mainly doing it by controlling the release of calcium ion. Tropomyosin is directly involved in release of calcium ion. Here also, when calcium ions bind to troponin C, troponin complex undergoes a change in the shape, and that shifts tropomyosin away from actin. That is, troponin will be controlling tropomyosin, and tropomyosin is actually controlling the actin myosin attachment. So that is how. So troponin controlling tropomyosin. Tropomyosin is actually responsible for controlling the muscle attachment of actin as well as myosin. So this is how the function. These are the functions of different types of protein. We have four protein: tropomyosin. Then there is tropin, there is myosin, and there is also actin. Class